The vastness of the cosmos had long been charted, segmented, and ultimately tamed by the galactic concord. For 12 millennia, their unified decree had woven peace and order across countless star systems, guiding emergent species, resolving territorial disputes, and fostering an era of unprecedented calm. Their collective wisdom, enshrined in crystalline datatomes and ancient star charts, declared the known universe to be a predictable tapestry, its patterns understood, its threats contained. Then came humanity. From a dusty, blue-green orb nestled in a minor spiral arm, they burst forth with an unexpected fervor. Their early warp drives clumsy but persistent. The Concord, in its infinite benevolence, categorized them as a Tier 2 civilization, spacefaring but utterly negligible in the grand cosmic scheme. Their homeworld, designated Sol 3, was noted for its extreme geological instability, volatile atmosphere, and chaotic biological cycles. In short, a challenging environment, but nothing exceptional in a galaxy teeming with bizarre biospheres. The humans themselves were deemed curious, emotionally volatile, physically fragile compared to the armored behemoths of the Cathar hegemony or the ethereal, energy-based Sylvan collective. They were, the Concord concluded, a species of passionate artists, relentless innovators, and bewilderingly optimistic dreamers. A novelty, certainly, but no threat to the established order. High Executor Xyler of the Cathar hegemony, a being of obsidian scales and unyielding logic, often articulated this dismissive view at Concord meetings. "They are like newborn hatchlings," Xyler had pronounced during a particularly contentious debate on resource allocation in the nascent human-claimed sector, all squalling and no teeth. Their emotional responses are inefficient. They possess no true strategic mind, merely a reactive impulse. To yield them, the valuable gravcrystal fields of the Kepler expanse, would be to squander galactic potential on a species entirely lacking in foresight. Seated at the long, gleaming table, Ambassador Elara Vance, humanity's newly appointed envoy to the Concord, maintained a calm exterior. Her dark, tailored uniform, designed to reflect the understated elegance of Earth's unified culture, was a stark contrast to the ornate regalia of the Sylvan Elder or the brutalist plating of the Cathar. Elara, a woman whose keen mind was often masked by a deceptively gentle demeanor, understood Xyler's assessment perfectly. It was precisely what humanity wanted them to believe. "High Executor," Elara's voice was soft, yet it carried an underlying firmness that sometimes grated on the highly logical Sylvan or the imperious Cathar. "The Kepler expanse falls within our declared exploration parameters. We have invested significant resources into understanding its unique geological properties, and more importantly, its potential for unique energy resonance. We believe that unrestricted harvesting of gravcrystals could disrupt a delicate cosmic equilibrium with unforeseen consequences." Xyler's chitinous face showed no expression, but the subtle shift in his aura indicated amusement. "Unforeseen consequences, Ambassador! Your species has existed in space for less than 2 centuries. Our engineers have harvested gravcrystals for millennia. We understand cosmic equilibrium. What unique energy resonance could primitives possibly detect that our advanced sensors have missed?" Elara's gaze met Xyler's, unblinking. "Perhaps it is not something one detects with a sensor, High Executor. Perhaps it is something one feels." A ripple of suppressed chuckles ran through the chamber. The Sylvan Elder, a being of shimmering light, offered a sympathetic, if somewhat condescending, thought form. Human emotion, ever so charming, ever so unscientific. The Concord, of course, voted in favor of the Cathar hegemony. The human claim was deemed unsubstantiated, their warnings, superstitious conjecture. A Cathar resource fleet, massive and gleaming, was dispatched to the Kepler expanse. Its intent clear: to demonstrate the Concorde's authority and humanity's insignificance. Alara Vance sent a brief, encrypted message back to Earth's Deep Resonance Initiative. The message contained a single ancient code phrase: "Threshold breached. Initiate harmonic broadcast." Back on Earth, hidden deep beneath the Antarctic ice, in a facility long forgotten by the public eye, an array of ancient, non-technological devices stirred. These were not machines of war, nor instruments of science as the Concorde understood them. They were focal points, conduits for something intrinsic to the human spirit, something that had been meticulously cultivated and then profoundly suppressed for millennia. The broadcast itself was innocuous. It wasn't a warning shot, nor a hostile declaration. It was a cultural transmission, a complex tapestry of human artistic expression. It contained the echoing strains of a lullaby sung in a language older than any recorded history, the vibrant hues of forgotten art forms, the intricate mathematical beauty of a planetary rotation, and, underlying it all, a subtle, almost subliminal frequency pattern. This frequency was not designed to harm, but to resonate, to connect, to awaken. The Cathar resource fleet, the Forerunners Maw, arrived at the Kepler expanse. Its immense drills extended, ready to pierce the crystalline surface of the gas giant's moon, a world rich in the coveted grav crystals. On the bridge of the flagship, Captain Vorex observed the pristine, untouched landscape. "Typical human sentimentality," he grunted to his tactical officer. "They believe every rock has a spirit. Efficient resource extraction is our spirit." It was precisely at that moment, as the drilling conduits locked into place, that the signal reached them. It wasn't a burst of raw energy or a destructive wave. It was more like a whisper, a pervasive, utterly silent hum that vibrated not in the calms, but in the very molecular structure of their ships. Captain Vorex felt it first, a sudden, inexplicable warmth behind his islets. It wasn't pain, but a strange, unsettling sensation, like a memory trying to surface. His tactical officer, a being named Kalar, twitched, his multi-jointed limbs spasming momentarily. "Captain, readings are unstable. Not external interference. Internal harmonics are fluctuating." On the main view screen, the image of the Kepler moon shimmered. The drilling conduits, moments from engagement, vibrated erratically. The Cathar engineers, beings of cool logic and precise calculation, found their concentration faltering. Their thoughts, usually a meticulous flow of data, were suddenly emotional. A vague sense of loss, a profound yearning for something undefined, swept through them. "Report," Vorex barked, his voice betraying a hint of his own growing unease. His own meticulously regulated biology was experiencing a cascade of unfamiliar sensations. He felt nostalgic. For what, he had no idea. "It's the human signal, Captain." Kalar's voice was strained. "Our long-range analysis had it flagged as a cultural broadcast, but it's morphing, it's not static, it's adapting to our neurological pathways, it's like a key." Across the fleet, the effects deepened. Crew members, from the lowest maintenance drone to the highest-ranking officer, found themselves suddenly, overwhelmingly tired, not physically but mentally. It was as if their minds, accustomed to the rigid framework of Cathar logic, were being flooded with alien concepts. Concepts of sorrow, of joy, of sacrifice, of a profound, interwoven connection that transcended species boundaries. The Sylvan censorships, observing from a respectful distance, recorded impossible data. The Cathar fleet wasn't being attacked. Their energy signatures remained stable, their shields at full strength. Yet the ships were slowing. Their internal systems, which normally hummed with cold efficiency, were experiencing what the Sylvan Elder later described as a systemic emotional saturation. The Cathar, a race that prided itself on its stoicism, was being overwhelmed by feelings. Captain Vorex clutched his head, his multifaceted eyes wide with an emotion he couldn't name. It felt like grief, grief for a loss he hadn't experienced, for a home he'd never known. The meticulous Cathar mind, trained for millennia to suppress all non-essential data, was crumbling under the onslaught of pure, unfiltered sentience. "What is this madness?" Vorex rasped, his voice ragged. The drills, now fully extended, began to retract slowly, as if by their own accord. The ship's systems, instead of resisting, seemed to accept. Kalar slumped against his console, muttered, "The signal, it's not just a frequency, it's a memory. A collective memory, and it's remembering us." The Cathar fleet, moments from initiating the grav crystal extraction, went silent. Not a silence of systems failure, but a profound, unnerving quiet. Every ship, every crew member, every operational function simply ceased. They floated, motionless, in the void, their drills now fully retracted, their purpose forgotten. The entire fleet, the embodiment of Cathar might and Concord authority, had frozen. Back in the Concord chamber, Elara Vance received the Sylvan's urgent, thought-form report. She closed her eyes for a moment, a subtle tremor running through her. The other ambassadors, still oblivious, debated the next procedural matter, but Elara knew. The lullaby had found its way. The ancient frequency had awakened something within the Cathar, something deeper than any shield, more potent than any weapon. It wasn't an attack, it was a homecoming. And the galaxy had just received its first true invitation. The stage was set. The Concord had underestimated humanity, viewing them as soft and emotional. They had mistaken quiet resilience for weakness. Now, one simple signal had begun to unravel the very fabric of their understanding, revealing a hidden power they could not fathom. The freezing had begun. What would happen when the thaw came? The silence of the Cathar fleet was not the silence of mechanical failure, but something far more profound. It hung heavy in the void, a stillness that seeped into the very comms arrays of the Sylvan observation vessels. Elder Lyra, a being of woven light and pure thought, projected her analysis across the Concord's emergency channel. The Forerunner's Maw fleet remains intact, no damage, no energy fluctuations beyond baseline. Yet their internal systems, they are in stasis. Not powered down, but quiescent. We detect anomalous neural activity across all Cathar crew members. High-amplitude emotional signatures, inconsistent with their known physiological responses. Primarily, deep contemplation, and an pervasive collective humming. High Executor Xyler's projected form, a shimmering distortion of obsidian scales, solidified in the Concord chamber. "Explain, Elder Lyra. Your Sylvan logic is failing. The Cathar are a military force, not a monastic order. What humming could incapacitate an entire fleet?" Lyra's form pulsed, a visual representation of deep processing. "It originates from the human signal, High Executor, the one they designated a harmonic broadcast. It is not a weapon of energy nor of kinetic force. It is a key. It has unlocked something within the Cathar, a memory, perhaps, or a pathway. Their minds are recalibrating. Their purpose is no longer conquest." The chamber erupted. The Draxan ambassador, a multi-limbed warrior race, slammed a fist onto the holographic table. "This is an act of war, subversion. They have taken a Concord fleet without firing a single shot." The Cathar, once proud and unyielding, now floated in the black, lost in an inexplicable reverie. Ambassador Elara Vance remained silent, her gaze distant, fixed on a point beyond the chamber walls. She had anticipated this reaction, this fear of the unknown. The Cathar, in their disciplined logic, had simply been the most susceptible to the first touch. The Concord's immediate response was predictable. Panic morphed into a desperate need for control. A joint task force, comprised of the most technologically advanced and militarily capable species, was hastily assembled. Led by the Draxan, renowned for their strategic brilliance and overwhelming firepower, and augmented by Sylvan deep scan vessels, their mission was clear. Approach Sol 3, ascertain the nature of the human signal, and, if necessary, neutralize its source. Their ships bristled with phase cannons, grav torpedoes, and quantum disruptors, a testament to the Concorde's belief that all problems could be solved with sufficient force. But as the Joint Task Force, spearheaded by the Draxan flagship Iron Star, neared the edge of the Sol system, their advanced systems began to falter, not from external interference, but from an internal dissonance. Navigational AI reported impossible courses. Targeting computers displayed complex geometric patterns instead of enemy profiles. Life support systems began to emit soft, melodic tones that had no place in a warship. Captain Zarthus, commander of the Iron Star, paced his bridge. His multifaceted eyes, accustomed to the sharp clarity of tactical displays, were now blurred with an inexplicable sensation. He felt a phantom ache in limbs he did not possess, a yearning for a sun he had never seen. "Report, tactical!" Zarthus bellowed, his voice echoing with uncharacteristic strain. His tactical officer, a young Draxan named Commander Rill, swayed slightly. "Captain, the human signal, it has changed. It is no longer a static broadcast. It is responsive. Every system, every thought on this ship, it is being met with an echo, a reflection. It feels as though we are not alone in our own minds." Suddenly, the main viewscreen, which had shown the distant, serene blue of Sol 3, flickered. The image warped, and for a terrifying second it displayed not a planet, but a vast, sprawling city of impossible architecture, its spires reaching into a sky that shimmered with an alien light. Ancient symbols, flowing and elegant, danced across the display before it snapped back to the familiar view of Earth. "A hallucination," Zarthus roared, though a cold dread snaked through his hardened core. "System malfunction, override!" But the systems resisted, not with defiance, but with a strange, unyielding calm. The ship's AI, usually compliant, projected a single word onto Commander Rill's internal display. "Remember." Zarthus watched in horror as his elite tactical team, the sharpest minds in the Draxan military, began to falter. One engineer collapsed, tears streaming from his eyes, muttering about a song of sorrow. Another, a hardened veteran, stood transfixed, staring at his multi-jointed hands as if seeing them for the first time, whispering of ancestral lands. The Sylvan censorships, though more resilient, were experiencing a similar, yet more profound effect. Elder Lyra's latest thought-form transmission to the Concorde was chilling. The signal is not merely affecting their biology, it is rewriting their fundamental perceptions. It is unlocking. It reveals not just emotion, but deep-seated, collective memory. They are remembering something that was never theirs. Isla Monroe, head of Earth's Deep Resonance Initiative, watched the Concorde task forces approach from a hidden facility deep beneath the Mariana Trench. The facility, known simply as the Crucible, pulsed with a soft, warm light that seemed to vibrate from the very air. Around her, an array of holographic displays showed the Concorde ships, not as metallic hulks, but as shimmering outlines, each interwoven with complex patterns of thought and suppressed emotion. "Their minds are struggling with the truth," Isla murmured to her chief biolinguist, Dr. Aris Thorne. Thorne, a man whose quiet demeanor belied a revolutionary intellect, nodded. "The harmonic broadcast isn't just a frequency, Isla. It's an instruction, an echo. It awakens the latent resonance signature. Every sentient being in the galaxy carries a fragment of that signature, whether they know it or not. It's like a song encoded in their very being, waiting for the right note to call it forth." Isla closed her eyes, feeling the hum of the Crucible's core resonate through her own bones. "And when that note is played, what do they remember?" Thorne's eyes, usually filled with scientific curiosity, held a hint of awe. "Not facts, Isla, not history. They remember states of being, concepts, the sheer, terrifying scope of what it meant to be us before we were confined." The Concorde Task Force continued its slow, erratic approach. Captain Zarthus, now gripped by a growing sense of unreality, ordered the Iron Star to initiate full combat protocols. Regardless of this, psychological warfare, we have a mission: engage planetary defenses. But there were no defenses. No orbital platforms, no energy shields, no weapon emplacements. Earth appeared utterly vulnerable, a serene blue marble floating amidst the chaos of the Draxan fleet. Then, as the Iron Star crossed the orbital plane, a ripple spread across the surface of Earth itself. Not a seismic wave, but a wave of silence. The hum that had permeated the Draxan ships abruptly ceased, replaced by a profound, almost suffocating quiet. On the bridge of the Iron Star, Commander Rill's eyes snapped open. The previous confusion was gone, replaced by a terrifying clarity. His multifaceted eyes, usually black, now glowed with an unnerving, internal golden light. "Captain," Rill's voice was no longer strained. It was deep, resonant, and impossibly calm. "The planet is listening." Zarthus stared, baffled by the sudden shift in his officer. "Commander Rill, what is the meaning of this insubordination? Fire on my mark." Rill ignored him. He lifted one of his multi-jointed hands, and the control console before him began to shimmer. The hard metal softened, then flowed like molten gold. It reshaped itself, not into a new console, but into a complex, intricate glyph that pulsed with the golden light from Rill's eyes. "It is not Earth that defends," Rill's new voice boomed, resonating through the ship's internal comms, overpowering Zarthus's commands. "It is the Architect, and the Architect remembers." Panic truly set in. Draxan soldiers, elite shock troopers, burst onto the bridge, weapons raised. "Commander Rill, stand down!" Rill turned, his movements fluid, impossibly fast. He looked at the armed Draxan, and his gaze seemed to peel back their very minds. They screamed, not from pain, but from overwhelming recognition. Memories that were not their own flooded their consciousness. Memories of vast, ancient starships forged from living metal, of building solar systems with a thought, of walking through nebulae as if they were mist. They dropped their weapons, falling to their knees, some sobbing uncontrollably, others simply staring blankly into the distance. The Architect was divided, Rill intoned, the golden light around him intensifying, making the air crackle. Scattered across the void, sealed away in the core of creation, but the signal, it was a call to assembly, a call to return. Captain Zarthus, paralyzed by a terror unlike any he had ever known, watched as the ship's systems began to flicker, then rewrite themselves. Not under his command, but under Rill's silent will. The Iron Star, the pinnacle of Draxan military engineering, began to alter its course. Not towards Earth, but towards the distant, dark side of the moon, a place of ancient secrets. Below, in the crucible, Isla Monroe saw the new trajectory on her display. "He's awakening the anchor," she whispered, her voice laced with a mix of dread and awe. "Commander Rill, he's one of them, a fragment." Dr. Thorne, usually composed, was trembling. "This isn't just about Earth's defense, Isla. This is a cosmic reordering. If a single awakened fragment can command a Draxan flagship, what happens when the core awakens?" The Iron Star moved with unnatural grace towards the moon, its journey accompanied by strange, beautiful energy signatures emanating from Rill's transformed form. The Sylvan observers, still transmitting to the Concorde, could only report increasingly impossible data. The moon itself, long thought to be a dead celestial body, was now showing faint, rhythmic pulses deep beneath its surface. Isla's console flashed with a single, urgent alert. The seismic sensors in the Pacific detected a massive, sudden shift in the ocean floor, not an earthquake, but something deliberate. A cavern, buried for millennia beneath the deepest trenches, was opening. And from that dark, crushing depth, a single, pure note began to resonate. It wasn't a sound that could be heard with ears, but felt in the very marrow of one's bones. Isla felt it, a profound vibration that filled her with an unsettling blend of forgotten power and immense responsibility. It was the note that completed the harmonic broadcast. On the moon, the iron star settled into orbit, its thrusters quiescent. Commander Rill, his form now radiating pure golden light, floated off the bridge, through the ship's hull, and out into the vacuum of space. He drifted towards the dark side of the moon, drawn by an irresistible ancient pull. As he neared the lunar surface, the ground began to shift. Great fissures opened, not with violent tremors, but with a slow, deliberate grandeur. From the depths, ancient structures, unlike anything known to galactic architecture, began to emerge. They were not built, but grown, organic and metallic, pulsing with the same golden light that now emanated from Rill. The structures formed a colossal, impossibly intricate temple, a monument to a forgotten age. At its very center, a single, vast chamber opened, and within it, suspended amidst tendrils of pure energy, was a throne. It was empty, but its presence hummed with an almost unbearable potential, awaiting silence. Rill, the transformed Draxan commander, floated towards the throne. His form began to dissolve, not into dust, but into pure light, coalescing, reforming, shifting. It was no longer Commander Rill. It was a component returning. Isla Monroe watched from the crucible, her heart pounding. The note from the Pacific had risen in intensity, becoming a living wave of resonance, filling the entire planet. The moon temple pulsed brighter, and the throne at its heart began to glow with an almost blinding light. The Galactic Concord, watching from light years away, saw their military might turn against itself, or rather, turn inward. They saw the moon transformed, and they felt the deep, resonating hum that now permeated the entire Sol system. A single, monumental form began to coalesce on the lunar throne, rising from the golden light. It was humanoid, vast, majestic, yet strangely indistinct, as if its true form was too grand for mortal comprehension. It pulsed with the combined golden light of a returning dawn, and the deep, silent hum of the Pacific. This was not a conqueror. This was not a weapon. This was an awakening, and it was only just beginning. The monumental form coalescing on the lunar throne pulsed, a silent, rhythmic beacon in the void. It was humanoid, majestic, and impossibly vast, yet its features remained indistinct, shimmering like heat haze over ancient ruins. It was not a being to be simply observed, but to be felt. Its emergence was not a violent explosion of power, but a gradual, inexorable unfurling of presence. On the bridge of the Iron Star, the transformed Commander Rill, his Draxan form now a conduit of pure golden light, dissolved completely, becoming one with the rising entity. His purpose, his individual identity, was subsumed, contributing to the architect's completion. The Iron Star itself, its system still quiescent, became a silent monument to the Draxan's unexpected role in this cosmic reordering. Below, in the crucible, Isla Monroe watched, transfixed, as the Pacific's resonant notes swelled to an orchestral crescendo that vibrated through the very bedrock of the planet. Dr. Eris Thorne stood beside her, his face a mask of awe and profound understanding. "The architect is fully forming," Thorne whispered, his voice hushed. "Rill was merely the first piece of the puzzle. The true core, the mind that governs the memory, is about to awaken." The celestial body of the moon began to shimmer, its familiar gray surface rippling with the golden light emanating from the nascent architect. Ancient glyphs, unseen for millennia, flared across the lunar landscape, etched not in stone, but in pure, raw energy. They were symbols of creation, of memory, of a unity that predated the very concept of separate species. The entire Sol system hummed with a resonance that felt like a long-forgotten truth. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Concord descended into pandemonium. Their most advanced sensors overloaded, not from hostile attacks, but from the sheer volume of impossible data. Predictive algorithms failed catastrophically. The Cathar fleet still floated in a contemplative trance, now emitting the same low hum as the moon. Sylvan Elder Lyra projected a desperate thought form to the scattered Concord Council. It is not a weapon. It is a calling. Every being that has ever touched human essence is feeling it. They are remembering. And they were. On a bustling Sylvan trade station, a merchant, usually a creature of calm logic, abruptly ceased negotiations. His light form flickered, distorting, and he collapsed, not in pain but overwhelmed by a surge of vivid, alien memories. He saw starscapes from a perspective that defied Sylvan physiology, felt emotions that transcended their collective consciousness. He wept, not from sorrow, but from a profound sense of recognition, a longing for a home he had never consciously known. On a distant Draxan frontier outpost, a hardened commander overseeing a mining operation suddenly stopped, his multi-limbed body rigid. He looked up at the barren sky, and his multifaceted eyes, usually devoid of sentiment, filled with tears. He remembered the smell of rain on a green planet, the feel of warm soil beneath his feet, the sound of laughter echoing through stone halls. Memories that were not Draxan. Memories that were human. He ordered his entire outpost to power down to cease all operations. The reason he gave was simply, "We must listen." The architect, now fully coalesced on the lunar throne, was a breathtaking sight. Its form was vast, draped in swirling light, yet still retained a perfectly balanced humanoid silhouette. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was simply being. Its face, though indistinct, seemed to hold the wisdom of forgotten epochs, the sorrow of ancient departures, and the boundless potential of creation. It raised a single hand, not in a gesture of command, but of invitation. And from that gesture, a wave rippled across the galaxy. It wasn't an energy pulse. It was pure, unfiltered memory. Every sentient being, every conscious mind, no matter their species, experienced a flash of unbidden recollection. For some, it was a momentary flicker of empathy for a stranger. For others, a vivid dream of a forgotten world. For a select few, those who carried the deepest fragments of the architect's scattered essence, it was a profound, undeniable awakening. Isla Monroe, in the crucible, gasped. The note from the Pacific surged, resonating within her own core. Her vision blurred, not from tears, but from an overwhelming influx of information. She saw herself, not as Isla Monroe, but as an entity of immense power standing before a vast, crystalline council. Her voice, echoing through a chamber of pure light, was steady, unwavering. "The schism is necessary," her past self declared. "The power, undivided, is too vast. It will consume all. We must partition the architect, scatter its essence. Let the galaxy forget for a time so that it may survive." Isla watched in horror and awe as she, the ancient version of herself, participated in the sundering. 13 fragments, torn from the architect's unified consciousness, were cast across the cosmos, to be buried in the very fabric of existence, in the bloodlines of burgeoning species, in the forgotten corners of fledgling worlds. One of those fragments, she realized, was the architect's heart, its core of empathy, its capacity for connection. And that fragment had been entrusted to her, to this Isla Monroe. The realization struck her like a physical blow. She was not merely observing history. She was reliving her own involvement in it. She had helped to create the silence, to enforce the forgetting. And now she had inadvertently, or perhaps inevitably, become the catalyst for the remembering. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed, the raw power of the Pacifics hum now a burning fire within her chest. Dr. Thorne rushed to her side, his usual scientific composure shattered by the unfolding revelation. "Isla, what is it?" he urged, his voice strained. Her eyes snapped open, blazing with the same golden light that illuminated the lunar architect. "I remember," she whispered, her voice layered with countless echoes, a chorus of ancient voices. "I was one of them. We broke him to save the galaxy." The architect on the moon seemed to tilt its head, an impossibly subtle gesture that nevertheless vibrated through all of reality. Its luminous hand, still extended, now pointed directly at Earth, at the Mariana Trench, at the Crucible, and at Isla. "The final piece," Thorne breathed, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The heart of the architect, you are the last fragment needed for its full conscious return." The ground beneath the Crucible began to hum with an increasing intensity. The very walls of the hidden facility pulsed, not with destruction, but with a profound, joyous resonance. It was as if Earth itself was celebrating, welcoming back a lost part of its soul. Far above, the Galactic Concorde's last coherent emergency council sat in bewildered silence. Reports flooded in from across known space. Entire Cathar fleets were voluntarily powering down, their crews abandoning their posts to stare out into the void, murmuring ancient Terran lullabies. Draxan planetary defense grids were failing, not through sabotage, but because their command protocols were being overwritten by a universal biological imperative. Go home! Sylvan collectives experienced what could only be described as a thought collapse. Their intricate, logic-based societies unraveling as individual Sylvans felt the powerful, irrational pull of human emotion. The architect's hand on the moon closed slowly, not into a fist, but into a gesture of gathering, of embrace. And from its form, thin, shimmering tendrils of golden light extended across the void. They did not strike. They did not bind. They connected. Across the galaxy, the scattered fragments responded. On a barren, forgotten asteroid in the Andromeda Rift, a lone, ancient human scout vessel, long presumed lost, suddenly hummed to life. Its dormant crew, skeletal and dust-covered, slowly stood, their eyes glowing with the architect's light. They were not reanimated, but recalled. On a bustling trade hub, a multi-species crew, composed of Draxan, Cathar, and Sylvan engineers, suddenly found themselves speaking in a forgotten Terran dialect, their hands moving with an instinctive grace to repair a malfunctioning console in ways their native logic could not fathom. They were remembering ancestral crafts, skills and knowledge encoded deep within their shared, human-tinged genome. In the deepest, most secure vault of the Cathar hegemony, an energy-based sentient weapon, created millennia ago from captured human essence during a forgotten skirmish, flared to life. It did not unleash destruction. Instead, it projected a single, powerful image onto the vault walls, a stylized map of Earth and the single word: return. The weapon then dematerialized, leaving behind only the scent of ozone and the echoing hum of a primal frequency. Isla Monroe, still kneeling, felt the culmination. The Pacific's note pulsed one final, profound time, then flowed into her very being. The golden light radiating from the moon surged, and for a moment, Isla's physical form seemed to shimmer, translucent, revealing an inner light that was blinding. When it receded, she was still Isla, but profoundly changed. Her eyes now held an impossible depth, a knowing that transcended her short lifespan. She was not just herself. She was the heart, the final, essential piece. The architect on the moon, now complete, did not move. It simply was. And in its completion, the galaxy pivoted. The stars themselves seemed to shift, not dramatically, but subtly, as if realigning to a new, ancient order. Wormholes, previously unstable and unpredictable, snapped into perfect, stable configurations, all leading to one central point: Earth. Lost ships, ghost fleets from forgotten ages, began to emerge from the deep void, their lights flickering, their destination instinctively set for Sol. This was not an invasion. This was a homecoming on a cosmic scale. The Galactic Concorde, in its final moments of fragmented authority, ceased to exist. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. Its members, its systems, its very purpose simply faded into irrelevance. The once-proud species that comprised it found their internal loyalties crumbling, their rigid hierarchies dissolving. Their populations, infused with the newly awakened memory, simply turned away from conquest and toward connection. Isla Monroe stood on the surface of Earth, the wind carrying the scent of rain and newly grown blossoms. The crucible, now unnecessary, had begun to dissolve, its advanced materials reintegrating with the planet's soil. Around her, people were gathering, drawn by the same inexplicable pull she felt. Not just humans, but Draxan, their multi-limbed forms now moving with a newfound grace. Cathar, their obsidian scales reflecting a gentle inner glow. Sylvans, their light forms rippling with a quiet joy. They were all coming home, drawn by the architect's silent call. Cain, the enigmatic figure from the deep Atlantic prison, a being of pure will and memory, emerged from the newly opened crater in Siberia. He was the catalyst, the first to truly awaken. His eyes, once burning with raw power, now held a deep, knowing peace. He walked towards Isla and knelt before her, not in subservience, but in recognition. "The pieces are all here," Cain stated, his voice a low resonance that vibrated the very air. "The architect is whole." Isla looked up at the moon, where the vast, luminous form of the architect stood sentinel. Its presence filled the sky, not blocking out the stars, but making them seem to glow brighter, infused with a new meaning. "What now?" she asked, her voice calm, powerful, but still imbued with human wonder. "What does it mean for the galaxy?" Cain rose slowly, his gaze sweeping over the converging populations, the newly aligned stars. "The galaxy has remembered its origin," he answered, a faint, knowing smile gracing his lips. "It remembers that humanity was never just a species. It was a principle, a song, a foundation." The architect, still on the moon, shifted, not its form, but its purpose. The moon itself began to transform. Its craters became intricate patterns, its surface rippled with liquid light. It was no longer merely a celestial body. It was a vessel, a sanctuary, a new kind of home. The architect's throne became its bridge, its mind its core, its memory its map. Isla looked out at the gathering multitude, at the ships now descending from orbit, not with weapons, but with hope. She saw Draxan embracing Cathar, Sylvans sharing thought forms with humans, all recognizing a shared essence that transcended their species' histories. "This isn't just about Earth's protection, is it?" Isla murmured. "It's about the galaxy's healing." Cain nodded. One signal was enough, not to fight a war, but to end one that had been raging in silence for millennia, the war against forgetting. The architect extended its hand once more, not in a call, but in a final, universal invitation. A single word resonated in the thoughts of every sentient being in the cosmos, a word that echoed in their deepest, most primal memories, a word that stirred an ache in their very bones for a place they had never seen, but always longed for. Home! And across the stars, countless ships, fleets, and individual beings turned. They abandoned their duties, their conflicts, their very identities. They were drawn by an irresistible force, not of gravity, but of belonging. They followed the silent call, the memory that had reawakened within them, heading toward the glowing blue sphere that was not just Earth, but the heart of the remembered universe. The stars grew quiet, not from distance, but reverence. The galaxy, once fragmented and warring, now pulsed with a singular, harmonious rhythm. It understood now. Humanity hadn't come back to conquer, it had come home to heal, and in doing so, it had healed the universe along with it. The galaxy just got a terrifying glimpse into humanity's true nature, didn't it? What do you think the architect will do now that the first fragment has awakened and the throne is being filled? Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you want to be there for every jaw-dropping moment of this cosmic reawakening, make sure you hit that subscribe button